Brooke from the Vintage Gardener. Welcome back to my channel. So today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my favorites from 2021. It occurred to me when I did the year-end review that I really didn't talk about the standouts in my garden, the standouts in gardens that I visited, some things that inspired me this year, and that sort of thing, which is kind of like, I don't know why I didn't do that, but I'm going to correct that now. Okay, so first things first, let's start with the flowers, because I know primarily you guys, want to hear about the flowers. I grew, you know what, I don't even know how many flowers I grew from seed. I think I know when, and I hadn't finished yet, I know that I had done like 65 varieties, and I knew that I had started additional ones after that, because I feel like with the 65, those are the ones that required winter sowing, and the ones that came after were ones that seeds I got late and seeds that were summer seeds, so I knew I needed to start them later. And then of course I did purchase some additional flowers. So this year I think that probably I put in at least 100 different varieties of plants this year. And so I think I mentioned some of them in videos. Next year I'm gonna definitely work on when I do like the garden tours, I think I'm going to be breaking it down by section so that I can talk about each single plant. Because I garden probably a little bit differently than a lot of people do. So you'll kind of see that when we go along. So the first things first are flowers. And so I broke it down into my favorite spring, summer, and fall. And actually, I guess I should add winter there because I do have a winter. And I just realized that I did not mention what my favorite winter flower was. And that is Winter Joy Camellia. That's the only camellia that I have at this point. And it is a pink bloom. It looks like a rose. And that is exactly why camellias are referred to as Christmas roses. I do have a winter bloomer. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know I mentioned, I think in a video, I think was it earlier this year on planning a garden. I personally don't like a static garden. I know for a lot of, I know what's very popular now is that when you pick a plant, you pick something that's got more than one season of interest. And I don't subscribe to that view. I like my garden to look different from spring to, early spring, late spring, early summer, late summer, early fall. Like I like that. I want to be able to look at pictures and know, like, oh, it must have been at this time that this picture was taken simply because what's blooming. And so that's one of the reasons I have so many different varieties of plants. So that's just a me thing, but so that's why I had to break it down this way, because yeah, it's kind of hard to say this one annual was the favorite annual throughout the summer because that changed. So let's talk about spring. So my favorite annual for spring are definitely poppies. I've never grown poppies before. I'm not really sure why. I mean, just like sprinkling them, I never thought about sprinkling them in the ground. I think for me, because I live in an area where there's a lot of wild animals, I think I was afraid that if I sprinkle seeds, like, with the animals, they would get destroyed. But with poppies, a lot of places sell them in such high, quantities that even if you get lost, it's going to be fine. I'm late to the poppy party, but now that I'm here to stay. And so poppies will always be a part of my garden. I may not grow the same ones every year. I think I'm just going to kind of experiment with them. And the thing is, my garden is only going to get larger. I have like an acre property, and I'm planning to turn pretty much the entire acre into a garden. And so I will have space for plenty of different varieties, so I'm not worried. So my favorite annual for spring are poppies. Now, in terms of perennials, I would say that my favorite perennial for spring are delphiniums. This year, I was actually able, thanks to winter sowing, to not only sprout them, but actually get them in the ground. That's something I had been failing with. In 2020, I'm trying to think, I think I got some to sprout, but between the, with the greenhouse flipping over a couple of times, I just lost a lot of things, and I wasn't willing to try. By that point, I think it was really too late to start them. But I got a lot of delphinium in the ground, and the ones I got in the ground were a shorter variety, but the colors, oh man, they actually bloomed twice, and which I didn't know delphiniums would do that. I don't know if it's just because where I had them situated, they were getting a lot of shade and it was cooler, you know, because all the heat loving stuff were like shading them. And so they bloomed again, but they were absolutely beautiful. And so it's definitely my favorite fall perennial. Okay. And then let's talk about roses, because I do have a fair amount of roses. I added a couple this year, and so I like the ones that I added, but I would say this year the standout rose for me was the Desdemona. It, man, first off, it grew a lot bigger, and it just was like prolifically blooming. I think it's probably because I used those Job's fertilizer sticks, so it was getting continuous feeding. So definitely my favorite. It was just covered in flowers the entire time, and I really loved it. Charlotte, you know, next year, Charlotte and Mill and Floss I added this year, and don't get me wrong, they performed very well. Next year I'm going to have to prune them back to hopefully they'll thicken up. And I know I've got some yellow roses in the Sunset Garden that they didn't bloom that well because I wasn't really tending to them. So I got to work on that area. I may actually end up taking those roses out of there and putting them in the parterre garden because I think they may actually be happier, but that'll be a story for another day. So my favorite summer perennial would definitely be coneflowers. And if you guys have been watching my podcast, you'll know that I added a lot. The coneflowers were great. The green twister coneflower that I put in the memorial garden did the best because that one was a little bit older. The other ones I added this year, so they are settling in, but I'm sure next year I'll get a much better show. But definitely my favorite. I really like the ones like for example, the Confection series. I like the heads on them a lot better than like for example the white powwow and that sort of thing. That's just my preference. The other thing is I found a true pink, a pink parasol, so that was also a nice one. And so let's talk about fall, because like I said, I want different blooms from spring to fall. And so my favorite fall annual, I would say, were Lisianthus. I did get them earlier in the spring, and I think if they bloomed, early in the summer, I guess I should say, they didn't really bloom over the summer because I think it was too hot. But once the weather cooled down, they really started putting on a lot of blooms. As a matter of fact, they handled a killing frost. I had a killing frost and it did not kill them. They did bloom, but it's beautiful. It's very rose-like. I would say that, especially once the weather cooled down, it was a little bit more prolific than my rose bushes. So it's something, as a matter of fact, right now I'm starting some Lisianthus from seed. I've got them on a heating mat. And so I'm hoping, it's definitely one of those things that I want to increase the amount of those in my garden. Okay, and so my favorite fall perennial is a chrysanthemum. The nice thing about the chrysanthemums is that they can handle frost, not just like, it's not like with dahlias, they can handle a light frost, but like with my chrysanthemums, they handled a killing frost and it did not kill the plant, whereas with dahlias, it kills them. And so with the dahlias, I want to say with the fall, usually I get them to last, they usually last a little bit longer, but they died, I think, like earlier on in the fall because I feel like we had an early frost, whereas the chrysanthemums kept going. The other thing is that with the chrysanthemums, the bloom life lasts a long time on the stem, and even in a vase, they actually last for a few weeks. So it's definitely one of my favorite perennials for fall. So I know you guys are probably wondering if there's one flower that I would say it was like the flower of the year for 2021. I would say hands down it is the Flemish Antique Poppy. It was very peony-like, and for those of you guys who've been following me, you know that my favorite flowers are peonies and roses, but not like the tea roses. I'm talking about like the English style roses that are, because actually they kind of look like peonies, or I guess maybe you should say the peonies look like English roses. But the Flemish Antique was definitely my favorite flower this year. It was just, some of them had a little bit more white and then, you know, red on the edges, and then some of them were a lot more red. But it was beautiful. It was the size of my palm, and it's definitely one of those things that I will always have that in my garden because I liked it so much. Okay, so the next thing is America's garden capital, because if you guys have been watching my channel, you know that I've been visiting local gardens. Well, I guess I shouldn't say local. That's a relative term. So America's garden capital is a list of 37 gardens that are within a 30-mile radius of Philadelphia. So I'm in New Jersey, so that covers a couple of gardens in New Jersey. And so my goal was this past year was to visit 6. Of the 6, 2 were gardens that I had already visited, which is one was Peach Meadowbrook Farm, and the other one was Cordeless Farm. And of course, I think I mentioned in the earlier video that I wanted to go to Cordeless Farm because they had a peony walk and I wanted to see the peonies bloom. I did in fact do that. I did post a video. I'm going to try to link it somewhere here. And with Peach Meadowbrook Farm, I did go back. As a matter of fact, I did Cordeless Farm and Peach Meadowbrook Farm on the same day. And so I got to see both of those in early spring. I actually did end up going back to Peach Meadowbrook Farm because there was like a gardener's market that was hosted by the Hardy Plant Society. And so I did mention that 4 gardens I was going to go to because they were smaller gardens, like less, like maybe an acre or less than 2 acres, which I thought would be really good, especially because most people don't necessarily have, you know, a 5-acre, yard. Most people have under an acre. I didn't, of all of them, I think I only visited 1. I know one of them, it was I think it was the Morris Arboretum. It was part of this college. Because of COVID, they were not open. And so I couldn't visit that, and then because of how the weather went with planting, I just ended up not being able to go because I just ended up with planting for a longer time than I was originally planning. For those of you guys who are newer to my channel, you know, in my last house, especially with the weather we used to have, because our weather patterns are changing, the way the weather had been working was that I basically would finish all hardscaping by like April, and then I would plant kind of like mid-April and go through May. And when I was in my last house, Wild Leaf Cottage, you know, with April, we would on occasion get a frost and you'd have to run outside and cover things. But for the most part, once you were planting things, we weren't getting freezing temperatures. Whereas this year and last year, I mean, I have a wood burning stove. I was actually using my wood burning stove through like mid-May because of the weather. So it definitely delayed me getting certain things in the ground. And then of course we had early hot weather, so it limited how much time, like for example on Saturday, I could, you know, if the weather is like 60 degrees, I could literally spend 10 hours outdoors planting. This, for the past couple of years, I hadn't been able to do that because the heat was it was too much. This year I should have a much easier time for any number of reasons, but I'll go over that into a different video. So that's why I wasn't able to visit, you know, the gardens the way I wanted to. But I did visit 7, but I only got 6 stamps. The one garden I visited that I didn't get a stamp for was Tyler Arboretum. They had a plant sale. I'm actually going to join the membership for like the Friends of Tyler Arboretum, because with the plant sale, like if you're a member, like you get like early access to the plants. Because I did go, I think I did post a video and I was very upset because I wasn't a member, so by the time I got there, like everything had been gone. That I wanted, you know, basically what I wanted was gone. So of all the gardens that I said I was going to go to that were smaller, it was Wick Garden that I went to. And the description was a little bit misleading because it said it was a half acre, but that was really just the rose garden, which is what they're known for, was a half acre. The entire property is like 2 acres. But it was very nice. It's something I'm gonna go back again. I wanna go back earlier spring. And the reason I wanna go back is because they have antique roses. And if you're not familiar with like the history of roses, the reblooming feature that's only a feature in, I think it's was like the China, like with the roses that originated in China. All prior to that, them being hybridized into like the European and Greek roses bloomed once. And so Wick Garden has historical roses. So these are the ones that I think, with the exception of the blush noisette, the rest of them are bloom one time. And so I missed that because I went in the summer and I didn't realize it was antique roses. Wick Garden does sell the antique roses, and I'm probably gonna get one because I don't mind having things that bloom once. As a matter of fact, one of the roses that I got from Antique Rose Emporium is only gonna bloom once, but when they do bloom, it's pretty spectacular. So let's see. Yeah, so with Tyler Arboretum, the reason I didn't get stamped is because I left my passport at home and I didn't realize at the time that they all have additional blank passports, so I could have grabbed a new one and just started filling it out there. Lesson learned for next time. So after visiting all 7 of these gardens, it was very inspiring, and so there are some things that I'm taking away and I'm going to try in my garden for next year. So first thing is, oh, you know what? There's 2 plants I'm gonna get, and this is what I saw at Bartram Garden. I didn't do a video on that because I think when I visited, I was in Philly for a different reason. I think that's when PHS had their member plant giveaway, and it was like a spur of the moment, so I didn't have my camera. And my phone, I need to get a new iPhone because the battery on this one is just, running down, and on the way there, I was talking to my mom, plus running the GPS, and I didn't realize that my phone wasn't actually plugged in powering it. But at Bartram Garden, there was 2 flowers that I saw that I'm going to get. One is a snail vine, and I saw that I can get seeds from Baker's Creek. The other thing is I can get snail vine plants from Monticello shop, which is in, obviously, and yes, I am talking about Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. You can buy it from there. The other thing I'm going to do this year is cup and saucer vine. I saw one at Bartram. It was beautiful, and yeah, I've seen people talk about it, and I don't know, it's like in the picture and seeing it in real life were 2 totally different things. I'm going to flash pictures of both of them on the screen. The thing with the snail vine is that it actually has a smell that's kind of reminiscent of like sweet pea and hyacinth. It just has an old garden type smell, and so it's a vigorous climber. I want to build an arbor this year because my dad gave me a slide saw, and I would like to cover it with a snail vine because it gets like 20 feet tall. So that's the takeaway from Bartram Garden. Then from Hortulus Farm, I'm going to do my own peony walk. I know that I talked about that in an earlier video. I think I have enough white peonies, and I've planted white peonies, and if I think I'm gonna have to show that video because I don't know if I've posted that one yet. So for next year, I'm gonna be trying to get it together with picking peonies blush peonies to go in the next section. And so I'm gonna go white, blush, pink, like red, that sort of thing. And so that was the takeaway from that. The peony walk at Hortulus was absolutely beautiful. It's one of those things I definitely am going to go see again. As a matter of fact, I joined membership with Hortulus, so I probably will have to renew it, but some of those types of things I can go as many times as I want in the year. Hopefully this coming year, because the terra garden is already set. It's just a matter of planting things. I think next year I should have more time to visit some old favorite gardens as well as and make some new ones. And then let's see, Longwood. Yeah, so this was the first time I'd ever been to Longwood Garden. I know. And, for some reason I had this mental thing that it was really far away. And it really isn't. So I've been to Longwood twice. I went once on my birthday, and then I went for the Christmas tour with some of my coworkers. And I'm probably going to get the membership because I think with past purchases, like when you buy a ticket, you can use that towards membership. I'm going to do that because my coworkers and I are planning to go back. It was absolutely great. The takeaway from that I got from that is when I saw their color wheel garden, it's not quite as divided as mine. I think theirs went from like purple, pink, red, orange, yellow, and white. Whereas for me, mine is like, you know, pink, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and white. And so I know you guys are probably thinking, wait, isn't blue and purple the same? I've actually found some plants that are actually blue, like the sky blue delphinium. And if you guys are listening to my podcast, you'll hear me talk about that. So the thing that Longwood did that I'm going to be doing is, number one, definitely going to need a better staking system because that's how they kept everything upright. I have some ideas for that. I'll go over that in a different video. The other thing is that one of the things I think that made a big impact in Longwood is because in addition to having the colored flowers, they also had some plants that were foliage that were colors. So for example, like the coleus, you know, they had like a red coleus as like part of the Beale Street collection. They had an orange coleus and that sort of thing. So that's one of the things that I'm going to do to add a little bit more dramatic impact. The other thing I'm going to do is I think with a lot of the colors, I think it'll make a bigger statement if I add more primary colors. So for example, like the red dahlias, my red dahlias all tend to be like deeper, like towards maroon, whereas I need something that's a little bit more primary red. So I think next year I'm going to be adding more like primary pink, primary red, primary orange, just to add some depth there rather than having such more muted colors. And I think that's going to make the garden look dramatically different. Okay, and so then from Tyler Arboretum, there's a couple things. I'm trying to track down this one magnolia called Hattie Carthen, and I'm going to call Triple Oaks Nursery because the owner told me he would help me find it if I couldn't find it. The other thing that because I want to add that to my garden, the other thing is that Tyler Arboretum did have a lot of magnolias, and so up until this year, I had 2 Royal Star magnolias, which they're magnolias, but they're not the traditional magnolia that people think of, you know. And so I do have some like southern magnolias on my property, but I added 4 more magnolias. They are the red pyramid ones, so they only get like 4 to 6 feet wide, and they're very conical. And so I put those in the parterre garden because I think I needed some like statement at the corners because since my design is so geometric. And so I did that. And so, yeah, so those were the things that I took away from those visits. So next year, I definitely want to see Shofuso because I think when the cherry blossoms bloom, they have a nice display. Definitely going to go back to Wick. And then down the street from me at Medford Lee's, they have the Barton Arboretum. It's now opened, so I'm going to go and tour there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send them some emails because I want to know like with their garden space, like if I can like meet with some of the gardeners just to see what they're doing, you know, because if they've got greenhouses and they're starting stuff, I kind of want to see what other people's processes are so that I can improve my own process and make my time in getting things planted more efficient, because I know it's going to be more difficult, especially as my garden gets bigger, but I really want to be in a position where, you know, spring and fall is when I'm doing my heavy planting, and the summer is when I'm just keeping everything watered and more enjoying it. Because this year I felt like all I did was just work in it, but I think the only times I really got to stop and enjoy it is when I had 2 visitors over and they toured my garden. Actually, I take it back because there was 3 because I forgot. Jen from For Our Blooms with Jennifer came. And that was really the only times I got to enjoy it. And guys, my dog is running through here with toys, so I apologize for the noise. So last but not least, let's talk about the horticultural societies, because I know that in a podcast I talked about joining horticultural societies, and I think I talked about ones that I was joining. So this year I joined the Hardy Plant Society. I did New Jersey Garden State Chrysanthemum Society. I did the Central Carolina Chrysanthemum Society, and I rejoined Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, known as PHS. So my membership for, actually, I think all of my memberships are due, so I need to get on that. So I'm gonna I ranked them in terms of, I guess I ranked them in terms of, well, you know what, I'm gonna rank it two different ways. I'll rank it in terms of getting free plants, and then I'm going to rank it in terms of, gave me the most bang for my buck. Okay, so in terms of the most free plants, I would say that, it may be a tie between PHS and the Hardy Plant Society. Maybe Hardy Plant Society is kind of number one, because Hardy Plant Society and PHS both had opportunities for free plants. I think with the Hardy Plant Society, they probably had more opportunities. It's just that unfortunately a lot of the events were during the work week, during the work day. I mean, if they were in the evening, I probably would have been able to go to more, but more of their events were during the work day. And because of that, I could not go. But during the work day, with the events that they had, yes, there were opportunities for a lot of free plants. So if you, if you are stay at home, or or you're already retired, I would definitely say the Hardy Plant Society is, of the ones I joined, is the better one to join, because there's definitely a lot more opportunity for free plants. And the nice thing is they do give you this schedule in advance. It's just that unfortunately, because I'm a lawyer, my schedule tends to be kind of rigid. So sometimes I can't, sometimes as much as I would like to do things, other emergencies come up where I actually have to do that. But if your schedule is not as rigid as mine, that's probably the one to go. PHS had a lot more giveaways this year in terms of plants. And the nice thing about it is that they were on Saturdays, so it didn't conflict with my work schedule. Usually they would do like one. This year they did two. So the first one they did was after the flower show. The flower show this year is at FDR Park, and it's going to be there next year. And so with a lot of the displays, they actually gave away plants to the members. I think last year I got 5, but I have since learned then that with PHS, when they do giveaways, go later in the afternoon, because a lot of times what happens is, as the crowds go through, well, not the crowds, but like the members go through, they realize usually by the end they have too much, and they usually come back and say, take whatever you want. And so the member giveaway they did later in the year, I wait for an afternoon, and I had gotten something, and as I was having lunch, they came and said, hey, go get more. So then I got I got all kinds of house plants and all kinds of things, so I definitely made out. So that was a good thing. The Central Carolina Chrysanthemum Society I liked because at a certain point in time they do have, they do order from King's Mums, and I was able to get more of the heirloom type of chrysanthemums that I was looking for. The New Jersey Garden State Chrysanthemum Society, I think they offer King's Mums too, so I'll be renewing my membership. It's just this year the guy waited on it too late, so they weren't able to do it. So this year, I'm checking. I know King's Mums, they said they're not going to turn their website on, before January 3rd. They won't give us a date, but I will be checking it, knowing me, I'm probably going to be at midnight checking it just to make sure. I do have my plant lists all out, all written out, so I can get on there and just search for the ones that I want and just pull them up really quickly to order them. And so hopefully that works out. So yeah, I'm definitely going to renew all of my memberships, because I like plants. In terms of usefulness, I would say that the Hardy Plant Society for me was number one. PHS was number two, and then the Carolina Chrysanthemum Society was number three, and the New Jersey Garden State Chrysanthemum Society was number four. Hardy Plant, they send you like the events via email, like, you know, every couple of weeks. They have a lot. They have a lot of lectures. They have a lot of things to do. They have a lot of pop-up tours. One thing that I missed last year was that there was a member in Morristown that had a Tapini tour, and I didn't realize that it was limited to 10 until it was too late for me to sign up. I won't make that mistake again this year. The nice thing about the Hardy Plant Society is that there are members that do allow you to tour their gardens. They have a directory. You have to reach out and contact them and ask, but they'll let you. But that's great because the gardeners that are part of that are definitely more experienced. As a matter of fact, one of the gardeners, like Steve Silverstein, who's like 20 minutes away from me in Willingboro, I went to see his 4-acre garden. It was really nice. He has a lot of stuff. He knows a lot. We have different tastes in flowers, but I mean, hey, that's with anybody. But he has a lot of stuff and loves giving stuff away. So if you need free plants, you might want to make friends with him because he's got a lot. So that was definitely the most useful one. PHS, they have a lot of lectures and that sort of thing. Actually, Hardy Plant Society does too, and not all of their lectures are paid, and if they are, sometimes it's like $5. The PHS one has different types of lectures. Like, for example, I know they had one with somebody from David Austin Roses, but they are a little bit more pricey, so you kind of do need to pick which ones that you want to do. The Central Carolina Chrysanthemum Society is very useful in terms of, you know, especially if you're growing the heirloom chrysanthemums for like show purposes. They're sending you email reminders out of tips and things you need to do. They have like weekly meetings. They have all kinds of lectures that they end up recording and that you can watch on your own time. So it's a lot of great information. The New Jersey Garden State Chrysanthemum Society, they're not very technical. I didn't really get too many emails or anything from them this year. The president he's not very tech savvy, so he likes to do everything old-fashioned way with mail and that sort of thing. But, you know, they do have an opportunity for you to get chrysanthemums. Some of the ones that I got were like the quarterback, the cheerleader, Bella the Ball. They were beautiful. I did like it. So, you know, like I said, and the bundles were pretty cheap. I mean, I got them at really good prices. So that's something to keep in mind. So anyway. Okay guys, so that is it for this video. I wish everyone a happy and safe new year. And guys, it's time to get ready for the 2022 garden. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, the next podcast, and hopefully the next live podcast. So goodbye.